Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Jazakumullah khair for coming to the training session today. This is our 5th training session, and it will be on communication skills that you can use during the week of IW and anti-discrimination training as well. So, as always, we're going to start by recitation from the Quran by Brother Ahmed Hafizullah, from Surah Al-Hujurat.
إنما المؤمنون إخوة فأصلحوا بين أخويكم واتقوا الله لعلكم ترحمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا يسخر قوم من قوم عسى أن يكونوا خيرا منهم ولا نساء من نساء عسى أن يكن خيرا منهن ولا تلمزوا أنفسكم ولا تنابزوا بالألقاب بئس الاسم الفسوق بعد الإيمان ومن لم يتب فأولئك هم الظالمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا اجتنبوا كثيرا من الظن إن بعض الظن إثم ولا تجسسوا ولا يغتب بعضكم بعضا أيحب أحدكم أن يأكل لحم أخيه ميتا فكرهتموه واتقوا الله إن الله تواب رحيم يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير.
So Surah Al-Hujurat is very relevant for today's session because it talks about many social aspects, how to treat people and other things that relate, that have, like when you talk to people, when you interact with people. So a lot of the verses talk about that, and its context is about, some of its context is about the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and how he treated people and how the people were supposed to treat each other and the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So next thing we have Sister Biftu Hulo. She'll be presenting communication skills training, inshallah.
What are you doing? بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من Oh my god. I'm so sorry guys, I'm not prepared for this at all. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Okay, come on, that was weak. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
So I just wanted to quickly translate that small dua that I made. It's actually verses 25 to 28 in Surah Taha. And it roughly translates to, "Oh Allah, open my chest and make speech easy for me, and untie this knot in my tongue so that people can understand my words." So that kind of segues into my presentation, which is about the art of communication. So before we even start, I want you guys to like give yourselves a quick round of applause because we've made it to the 5th training session of IAW. And IAW itself is less than 3 weeks away. And at the end of the day, we've done all this training, we've done the research, and we've done the posters. But during the week of IAW, we are on that floor and we are going to be talking to people. So we really want to be able to hone our communication skills so that the interactions that we have are positive. So inshallah, throughout my presentation, I'm going to be covering 4 things. I'll be covering a small lesson at the very beginning, and then I'm going to go into the 3 major keys of communication. And then from those major keys, I'm going to step through what might happen during IAW through a prophetic example. And then I'm going to end off with another small lesson, inshallah. So that's the plan. I do highly encourage you guys to take notes during the presentation because I do have like steps and like tips that you guys can write down. And I do have chocolates here with me today. So your participation is highly, highly encouraged. I want this to be as engaging and as interactive as possible with you guys. So keep that in mind throughout the presentation. So that being said, we're actually gonna start off with an activity. So what I want you guys to do real quick is I want you guys to pick a partner, ideally someone that's sitting like next to you or really close by. So pick a partner, do your thing. I love it.
I'm doing fine.
I'll give you guys like 30 seconds. And make sure you're sitting with your partner.
Oh, you forgot this. Can I have a tea?
Has everyone chosen their partner? Yeah?
That's participation.
Yes? Yes, up? Okay. Okay, so now that you guys have your partner, I want you guys to decide amongst yourselves who is going to be human 1 and who is going to be human 2. So let's quickly decide. So human 1s, can you guys raise your hand? Human 2s, raise your hand. So we got it clear? Okay, human 2s, I want you guys to close your eyes.
Oh no.
Just close your eyes. Please, 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 no peeking, because then it kind of ruins the activity. So human 2, your eyes are closed. Just give me a thumbs up. Yes? Okay. Human 1s, what I want you to do is I want you to very carefully read the next slide. Do not read it out loud. Just read it to yourself and very digest
No peeking.
what is on the board. So don't read it out loud, but read what's on it. Does everyone got it? Does anyone need a little bit more time to read it? You guys are good? Human 1, you're good? Okay. Human 2, you guys can open your eyes now. So human 2, what I want you guys to do, it's kind of written on the board here, is I want you guys, after I say go, is take 30 seconds to give your partner a small story about what you did from the moment you woke up this morning till what you did now. So brushing your teeth, going to the washroom, whatever it is you guys are ready. Sounds odd?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Okay, go.
Okay, so what I did today is I went to the washroom. What is going on? Why are you not listening to me? Listen, so I went to the washroom and then I brushed my teeth. And this is actually so Hi, darling. And then I got a drive here with Mariam. We were working on an IW video and...
Okay, 30 seconds are up. Eyes back up here, inshallah. Alright, guys.
Why are you laughing?
Okay, so guys, you can just quiet down now.
I'm crying.
Alright, so I want to do just a really quick debrief. So I want to talk to the human 2s in the room. the guys who were telling the story, what did you guys notice about your partners? Do you want to elaborate on that? Who said that?
Mario.
What happened? What happened?
Okay, so I was copying and then she started calling someone, like literally calling. Like, she's calling someone. I'm like, what? What is on?
Anyone else? Any other human twos in the room? Yes? Guys, if we can like try to stay quiet so that we can hear what the people are saying. Yes? He was working on his video, okay. Any other human twos in the room? He was rolling up his Tim Hortons cup. He was rolling up his Tim Hortons cup? Okay, nice stuff. So, for the human twos that are very confused, when you had your eyes closed, I instructed human ones to ignore you guys completely. So the idea is that they weren't listening to you. So now what I want to ask you guys, the human twos, is how did that make you guys feel?
You didn't want to talk anymore.
Feel abandoned, like it doesn't feel really good, right? So what you guys need to keep in mind is during the week of IW, people are coming and they're trying to start a conversation with you. And a conversation needs to go both ways, meaning that when you're talking to someone, you need to also be listening. Like Amr said in his previous presentation about the story of Ibrahim, is that God made you with 2 ears, but with 1 mouth. So we always want to make sure that we're listening to what the other person is saying and that the conversation is both ways. So that being said, I want you guys to listen. So listening is great, but there's actually 3 types of listening that exist, generally speaking. Does anyone want to take a crack at guessing what those 3 types are? I got chocolate. Yes. Guess one. Active listening.
I knew that one.
I'm going to throw you a chocolate.
Sister, okay?
She probably saw the slide.
Okay. Yes.
Passive listening?
Passive listening.
That was Hershey.
Okay. And
Open
then the last
listening.
type, in the back, Hersey. Huh?
I tag teamed you in here.
Close. I'm thinking more primitive than that. Yes. Someone already said that. Anyone?
Sorry.
Try not to, don't think about the word listening. Yes.
Opening.
I was going to say not listening.
Close. The people that answered, like, throw your hands up, we'll just throw you chocolate.
Hey, but that's...
I know, right? That diffuses.
I said open those.
Listening. You chill, man.
Who else said something?
Hezla.
I think, yeah, you did.
Young has.
Okay, so the last type of listening, and Hezla.
Hey, you're gonna run out of chocolate.
So the last one is hearing. So we have hearing, you have passive listening, and you have active listening. So hearing is a physical function. It's what you hear all the time. We're sitting in this room and I'm sure there's background noises that are going on, but that doesn't mean you're listening to it, but you hear it. So that's hearing. There's passive listening. Passive listening can be useful sometimes, but it's mostly for situations where the conversation only goes one way. So if you're like in a lecture setting, for example, the prof is speaking to you, he doesn't expect you to keep interrupting him and talking to him. You know what I mean? But active listening is what you do when the conversation is both ways. And this is what I want you guys to focus on during IW, is you want to be actively listening to people. So the question is now is, what does that look like? So when you're actively listening to someone, the first thing you guys need to remember is that you need to be looking at the person. So there needs to be eye contact when you're talking to people. The other thing that you guys need to try to do is try to nod, like try to show that you're actually listening to what they're saying, like try to visibly show that to them. And then the last thing you could also do to show that you're actively listening is repeating back to them what they said to you. So if they're talking and say they said something that was maybe confusing, repeat it back to them and ask for clarification. So that's active listening, so try your best to do that during the week of IW. So great, so that's listening. So that's one side of the conversation. We know how to listen now. Now the question is, how do we speak? So what I want to talk to you guys is 3 major keys to remember about when you're speaking. So this is 3 keys. You guys can write this down. We're going to go through them one by one. Number 1 is content. So you need to know what it is that you're talking about. So this is what the training is all about, right? It's getting the information, it's doing the research, it's really knowing your stuff so that when someone comes to you, you're not talking garbage, to say it nicely. This being said, one thing that we should always remember during the week of IW is that if you don't know something, say you don't know and bring them to someone that could help, okay? From Ahmed, he did that thing where he was like, I don't know the answer, let me bring you to someone that can help you. Remember that. If you don't know something, I don't want you guys starting to make things up about Islam. We want people to have an accurate representation of what Islam is. So that's number one, that's knowing your content. So the question is, again, with content, is that, okay, I know my stuff, but I'm not a scholar. Do I really have the right to be a volunteer? And I know I had this concern when I first became a volunteer. I'm like, I'm not a scholar, like I don't know everything. Can I still be a volunteer? Do I have the right? And the answer is absolutely, you do have the right to be a volunteer. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him, said, convey from me even if it is one verse. So this means is if the only thing you're able to say in a conversation with someone during the entire week of IW is, as Muslims, we believe in the oneness of God and that the Prophet, peace be upon him, is the last and final messenger, you have done your job. You have given da'wah at that point. You have given the message. You've given the invitation to Islam. So that being said, keep in mind that IW is not a conversion convention. Like, we're not here to try to convert people. Our goal is to present Islam to people that may have never heard of it, may have never understood some of the practices we do. So we're here to teach Islam. Guidance only comes from Allah. If someone does convert, alhamdulillah, but that's not our main priority. So that's our content. So you have your content, you have what you're going to be talking about, you've done your research. But if you suck at saying it and the delivery is weak, then the message is going to get lost along the lines. So your style, your delivery matters a lot. For example, this presentation, if I came to you guys and I was like, okay guys, today we're going to talk about the art of communication. Like, it's not going to work out that way, right? So your delivery is major, major, major key. But now the question is how do you decide what your style is going to be? How do you decide how you're going to deliver your message? So that brings us to our third point, the third major key, and that is knowing your audience. You guys need to know who it is that you're talking to. The way you talk to a fellow student might not be the same way that you talk to a professor. Might not be the same way that you talk to a little kid that comes to the convention. So you need to really know who it is you're talking to and kind of figure out maybe their background or their lived experiences. So from there, I want to do like a quick activity with you guys, more like a discussion. I want you guys to like throw out different kinds of questions that you could potentially ask someone that comes up to your poster to figure out where they're coming from. Just give me anything. Yes.
What's your program?
You guys are free to like take a picture of this at the end. What's your program? Simple question. Anyone else?
But do you already know about Islam?
Sure.
She keeps overlooking. Your hands right here. Watch ready, please.
No. Here, let me start throwing out some chocolates. Anyone else? You had your hand up for 10 hours. Who said that?
I don't know.
What was it? Name. Yes, exactly. Ask their name.
That's a basic question.
That's huge. And make sure you give them your name too. Anything else?
It's a rare question.
Where is she? It was a really bad throw. Sorry. Yes.
What brought you to the convention or thing?
What brought you here?
Yeah.
Just annoying me too.
Yeah, find out their intention. Anything else? Yes.
What does IW stand for? I don't know what it stands for.
What do you think IW stands for? Anyone else? Yes. Sorry? Where they're from?
That's a good question too.
Wow, I can't. Where they are. Okay, I'll take maybe two more. Yes. Yeah, you. What year are you in? Yes. Program/year. I'm missing the chocolate bro in here. Where is he?
Hey, better.
Who else said something? Someone said something earlier. I can't remember. And then one more. That's what.
It would be useful to get a little smoke.
Exactly. Okay, that's what I was looking for.
What is it?
Okay.
What's the question, sorry?
Is what kind of questions can you ask to get to know who you're talking to, who your audience is? So
Religion.
this is a pretty good list of questions that you could ask. Yeah, so the one I wanted to get to was religious background. Again, this is Islam Awareness Week. We're here to have a conversation about religion. So kind of knowing maybe their background, their ideologies, might help guide your discussion. So that's knowing your audience. You guys can keep these questions in mind, and it's going to help when we get into our prophetic example. Yes?
I'm sorry, but regarding the religious background, don't
Yes.
you think it's a bit too abrupt? As in it's a sensitive question.
It is, but at the same time, we're here to have a sensitive conversation, right? So you wouldn't say, hi, what is your religious background? That's not how we want to start it. We start with the small stuff, right? Hi, my name is, what is your name? What brings you here? What do you know about Islam? Oh, what are your backgrounds? You know what I mean? So you kind of like ease your way into it, and you want to make them feel comfortable, right? Yes?
The religious background is also important because you're trying to tailor your argument to whoever's talking to you. You don't talk the same way to an atheist as you do to someone who shares like the same root Abrahamic religions, for example, or Buddhist or whatever it is. So you kind of need to find out what they believe in so that you know where to start.
Exactly. So that goes back to knowing your content and your style, right? Your content and your style is going to change depending on who it is you're talking to. So it's super, super important to kind of try to get to know that person and try to establish that human connection. So now I'm going to bring you guys through a prophetic example. Alhamdulillah, we've already heard the story of Ibrahim and the lessons that we've kind of extracted from there. We've also heard the story of Ja'far talking to the Najashi. But today I want to present to you the best of all examples, the Prophet himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is kind of like a step-by-step run through of what a conversation or what kind of tips you should think about during a conversation. So again, I highly encourage you guys to take notes. It's like step 1, step 2, step 3. So step 1, this is before any conversation happens, this is before they even maybe approach you, is I want you guys to smile. There's a hadith in Tirmidhi that says a smile for your brother is charity. So we want to smile. If you see someone from a distance, be that friendly face that makes them want to come and approach your poster. So that's step 1, smile. Step 2, we want to always keep in mind that the Prophet ﷺ, he always started a conversation with a greeting of peace, saying salam. But this could be as simple as just saying hi. And this is one of my favorite ones because I know I can overdo it sometimes. Like I can say hi for like an hour, literally. But yeah, so when someone comes, like say hello, introduce yourself, say your name, get to know what their name is, get that greeting and like create that, again, that human connection. So smile, say hi, and then after that, shaking their hand is a sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. There is a hadith, let me just find it, that says, two Muslims will not meet and shake hands without having their sins forgiven before they separate, and this is in At-Tirmidhi. So the idea here is we need to keep in mind, again, that when you do shake hands, make sure you're shaking the hand of someone of the same gender. So now the question arises, and I've gotten this question many times last year, is what do I do if someone from the opposite gender comes and tries to shake my hand? Like, do I freak out? Do I like just let them hang? Or like, what do I do, right? But again, this is Islam Awareness Week. We're here to teach people. So the simple answer to that is that if someone tries to shake your hand, you say, no, in Islam, I do not shake the person of the opposite gender who's not related to me. And you kind of end it there, and then that could even guide another discussion. Yes?
If we feel comfortable with doing what you just said, is it okay to do it if we think it's comfortable for us?
I'm going to say I don't know, because I don't know the answer to that. Okay. Any other questions? But yeah, also, like, you can be the one to extend your hand out. If you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to. Again, it's a sunnah. But if you see that the other person doesn't want to shake your hand, like, don't don't force them. Like, don't be like, no, you're shaking my hand, you know? But again, shaking someone's hand, it builds, again, that connection. So that was step 3. So step 4, so this is before you start talking, you need to think to yourself about how you're going to talk, how you're going to balance your tone and your voice. So this is a verse in Surah Al-Luqman, verse number 19. That translates to be moderate in your pace and lower your voice. Indeed, the most disagreeable of sounds is the voice of donkeys. So this is saying, like, when someone's talking to you, don't be in their face and like screaming at them. You know what I mean? You want to have a level of volume where they can hear you, but they don't feel like it's too loud. You're not talking like this, but you're also not talking like this. You want to have a healthy medium. So this is before you start talking, but once you do start talking, step 4 is asking about their well-being, getting to know them. So again, going back to these questions that we brainstormed here, I want you guys to start asking the questions and trying to figure out, again, who is your audience? How are their classes going? How's their health? Do they have family? How is their family doing? The Prophet ﷺ, he used to always ask a person about their well-being, their health, before he even started talking to them about whatever it was that they were talking about. So this is something I want you guys to do. I want you guys to make it a mission, again, to get to know that other person so that you know what you want to talk about and where you want this conversation to go. So that brings us to step number 6, using simple and concise speech. So the Prophet ﷺ, he was blessed with very, very eloquent speech, meaning that he could talk about very vast and very deep subjects in very simple and few words. So again, you have to keep in mind that a lot of the people that are coming to IAW, that are coming to talk to you, probably don't know too much about Islam. So you're not gonna, like, if someone isn't familiar with the concept of prayer, for example, you're not gonna say, okay, when we do prayer, we're gonna do some ablution, and they're just gonna look at you like, whoa, what is that word? Like, what does that mean? You wanna simplify it, right? So if you wanna talk about wudu, for example, ablution, you say, okay, before we pray, we wash up to purify ourselves. Something simple, something that people that can understand. So you wanna use simple and concise speech. This being said, we also need to keep in mind that people are coming from different backgrounds. They're coming, we all know different languages. Like, alhamdulillah, we come from a country where there's people of all colors, of all backgrounds. So what we want to do is we want to keep the subject in English so that everyone can understand what we're saying. If you do feel like you have to use an Arabic word, make sure you translate immediately afterwards so that they understand what you're talking about. So yeah, step 6, use simple and concise speech. Step 7, avoid, yes?
Sorry, I have a question.
Yeah.
So, if I get, like, I'm Arab, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can speak Arabic. So if I get a person who comes up to me and she or he is Arab as well,
Mm-hmm.
and they tell me, is it okay if I speak in Arabic, or I prefer talking to you in Arabic? At that point, should I tell them that I prefer that we use English just because of IW, or do I speak to them in Arabic?
Okay, so what I would say for that specific situation, again, we do want to speak to people in the language that they understand best. If we can keep it to English, if you see that their level of English is good enough to stay in English, maybe try to stick to that. But if you see that they really, really want to speak to you in Arabic, at the very least, make sure it's only you two in that conversation, and try to make it so that it doesn't seem like try to make it so that other people can't really hear, you know what I mean? The problem with using another language is that people from outside feel left out. And they're like, oh, like, what are they talking about? Are they talking about me? So as much as we can, if we can avoid it, avoid it. But if you do, maybe like bring them off to somewhere separate. I know last year we had like a tent where people could go and speak. I don't see a problem with you speaking in Arabic over there if that makes them more comfortable. But again, always be conscious of your surroundings and what other people around you might be feeling, because you want everyone to be comfortable at the end of the day, right? Cool. Yeah, so step 7, again, avoiding useless argumentation. So during IAW, this doesn't happen often, but it does happen once or twice every year or so, where someone will come up to IAW, they'll be a visitor, and they'll go around to the posters, and their goal is not really to have a conversation or to understand where we're coming from. Their goal really is just to prove themselves right, and they're there to argue, they're there to debate with you, and they're not there with an open mind. And it's pretty obvious when it does happen, like you can kind of see it. And if you do see that happening, don't continue in useless argumentation, because things might be said that you don't want to be said. and it could just be a downward spiral. So if someone is coming at you and they're trying to like attack you, or they're trying to attack Islam, and they're saying, oh, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, try as best as you can to end that conversation, but also end it in a way where it's positive. Tell them thank you for coming out. It's like, I'm glad we had this conversation, but I don't see this conversation going anywhere. And if they do really want to talk to someone, bring them over to someone at the Quran table, and hopefully they can help you out. So yes, step 7, avoiding useless argumentation. And then last but not least, always end the conversation again with a greeting of peace. Feel free to teach people how to say salam, as long as they know that it means the peace and blessings of Allah be upon you. But again, what we want people to leave feeling good. Like at the very least, even if they don't get the answers that they're looking for, or the conversation didn't exactly go the way they wanted it to, at the very, very, very least, we want people to leave and say, today I talked to a Muslim and they were really, really nice to me. And that's what IIW is all about, right? It's breaking down those stereotypes and having people have that human connection and really being able to get to know us as a human. And again, ending with a greeting, saying like, thank you for coming, maybe even getting their contact. Like I know people last year, they would like exchange Facebooks and stuff and get to know each other, become friends. So yeah, end with a greeting, like make it a positive experience for everyone that comes through IIW. So yeah, that brings me to the end of the prophetic example. So the last like small lesson I want to talk about before I let you guys go is nonverbal communication. So a lot of communication that happens isn't always about what we say, what comes out of our mouth. A lot of it comes down to how we hold ourselves, right? So during IIW, in terms of nonverbal communication, there's 3 things I want you guys to keep in mind. Number 1, I mentioned it earlier, it's eye contact. So make sure you're looking at the people that you're talking to. If someone comes and talks to you and you're like doing this, or you're looking at the ground, or you're on your phone, like what the human twos experienced, miskeens, people aren't going to feel like they're being listened to again, right? So you want to keep that eye contact. You want to create that conversation. The second thing, again, that you should keep in mind in terms of nonverbal communication is your facial expressions. Like if they're saying something to you, for example, about their background, and you're looking at them like, you know what I mean? Like they're going to be put off by it. You have to be very, very wary of what your reactions are, what your face is looking like, and try as best as you can to look friendly, to look happy, to look like you really want to be in that conversation, and not like, okay, like when is this conversation going to end so I can go, you know what I mean? So you want to, again, be very conscious of your facial expressions. And then last but not least, and this is huge in terms of nonverbal communication, especially during IW, we're going to be standing, is your stance. So can I get one brave, volunteer from the audience? Okay, your hand up went up the fastest.
Victim. I don't know what she's doing.
Okay, come up. She's all a blur, which is great for me. Yeah, come up. Yeah. And then Akil, do you want to do my stand? Can I borrow? Someone have their poster with them? Can I borrow a poster?
It's right here. Of course, she wants to show off hers.
Oh, there's one right here? Okay.
Yeah, it's right there.
The middle finger.
Okay. So, I'm just going to move this.
I'm kidding.
I want you to just stand. Oh, I knew that. So I want you to stand with your poster like this. Okay, pretend this is the floor of IW. I'm a volunteer. I have the IW shirt on. I'm ready to go. Faraz is a visitor. He's just a regular visitor. He's coming through to see the show. And he's the type of visitor that's like super shy. He's not really, he's kind of in a rush. He's not.
No, I had to. She said don't.
Can you stand here? He's playing games. So yeah, so he's a volunteer. He's shy. He has like 2 minutes before he has to run to his next class. He's not really looking to talk to anyone. He just wants to kind of come in, read the posters, and then kind of bounce. Okay? So Faraz, you can go ahead. You're gonna kind of try and read this poster.
This poster, that was.
Oh my god. This is what you don't want to do. And I've seen it happen where people don't realize it, but they have their poster and they're standing directly in front of it like this. And people that are coming want to see your poster, right? So you want to be able to be cognizant of your stance. You want to be standing in a way where you're close enough to your poster so that if they come up, they have that opportunity to talk to you. But also give them a little bit of space where if they don't want to talk to anyone, they could read your poster and they could kind of get what they want and go about their way. Questions? Yes.
What about in a scenario where there's a lot of people crowding within it? How would you handle it?
Yes. So another thing I want you guys to try to be conscious about is I know a lot of us are friends here and we kind of like to talk to each other and crowd around our poster. But if one person is coming over and they want to see something, they don't want to be intimidated by this group of people, right? So as much as you can, I know you guys want to talk to each other, but if you're on the floor and you're there to present your poster, try to be alone or try to space yourselves out as much as you can. Yes?
Yeah, and my thing was related to that. It's you often see an interesting conversation start, and then you end up seeing around 8 more people from IW surrounding the person.
Exactly. So what we want to do is we want to avoid that, right? If you hear a conversation, it's going to happen where people are going to have hour-long conversations during IW. What you don't want is if you see 2 people talking, creeping up, trying to get that ear. So give them their space. You guys can find out how the conversation went after the fact. The volunteers aren't going anywhere, right? So again, being cognizant of where you're standing next to your poster and also how you're standing. You don't want to be standing like this. You don't want to be on your phone like this. You want to stand in a way where you're open to people. You're smiling. People want to come and they want to talk to you, right? Yes?
So, about nonverbal communication.
Yes.
There's a habit I'm a bit curious about, which is while you're thinking, it's very common for people to start looking up, either thinking or down or this. Where does this fit within the positive to negative spectrum?
Positive to negative? Well, I mean, for the most part, if you're visibly thinking, chances are the other person knows that you're thinking about it, right? And if they don't know that, you can just say, give me a minute, I need to think about this. And you can look away. You don't have to be thinking and then looking straight at them the whole time, right? Because then that gets awkward as well. So it's really it comes down to trying to find that balance. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. Yes.
One of the main questions is, because you're going to get questions of all sorts, what are the questions that we're not trying to answer? What kind of questions are there that we're not trying to answer at all? And that's for everybody, regardless of training team, whatever. I'm
glad you brought that up. So one thing that I encourage all of you guys to avoid is we're not here to answer questions of fiqh, of jurisprudence. So if someone's asking what about this madhab versus this madhab and this opinion versus that opinion, we're not scholars here, we're not here to discuss those differences. We're here to just give a general overview about Islam. Yes?
Politics.
Yeah, let's try to avoid politics as well if we can. Yes?
But if that kind of question comes up, what do we do?
You just tell them. We're not scholars. We're not here to answer questions about jurisprudence and differences in opinion. Another thing I would like to mention that I forgot to mention earlier is that, again, this is Islam Awareness Week. It's not Excellence Awareness Week. We're not here to just talk about our posters. We're not here to just talk about excellence. We want people to learn about our religion and what we do as Muslims in our lives. Yes?
It kind of relates to what you just said. How do we balance between spreading awareness on Islam? We do want to also mention our theme for IW.
So you also want to mention your theme, but don't only stick to the theme, if that makes sense. Again, at the very least, if you can say at one point in the conversation, as Muslims, we believe in the oneness of God and the Prophet, peace be upon him, is our final and last messenger, you've done your job. Your da'wah is done at that point.
Plus, to answer your question, how do you know? When you're introducing yourself and you're asking people, so what brings you by? Do you know what's going on with IW? Have you ever heard of us before? That stuff gets covered right in the introduction. So because a lot of people, they don't know what's going on, right? So when they come to you, you're like, hey, my name is X and Y, this is what's going on, do you know what our theme is, do you know what IW is? And then eventually you ask them, then they ask you what's going on, so what's going on here? And then you segue into your poster as opposed to segue into your poster right off the bat. Right?
Is there any other questions? Yes.
It's more of an add-on. So
okay.
an example, if you have in the poster, if you have two people who are working in the poster, there you go. So if you have 2 people working in the poster, so let's say we have Aqeel
we have our team here, and the poster is over here. And for us, the visitor again, we wouldn't want it to be as an interview style. So we wouldn't want two of us speaking to him that way. It would kind of step it, especially if there are 3-4 million people here. So like we would have instead like Anti standing beside Faraz, and we have like Aqil here. So that way Faraz has somebody beside you, so that he doesn't feel left out. Especially if the person is new to IW or even is new to the religion or something like that. They would actually have a person beside them rather than just an interview style of so many people.
And ensure you guys won't have to fold your posters like we have to use. Like you won't be doing this all of IW. So the show works out.
Yes. Any other questions, comments? Yes. Or are we running out of time? Okay.
So, I want you to elaborate a little bit more on the process, because you have no idea how many times I've been asked about a certain political situation. How do you get around to answering something like that?
I don't think I can answer that question. I'm not equipped to answer, because I don't usually get the political questions.
It is very often that people start asking you about a certain political situation in some Muslim country where they are doing X and Y to some group.
The same way you say it's not
Keep it simple.
Yeah, keep it simple.
What did he say? I don't know.
Muslims don't like Muslims. So people say, why is this happening in Muslim land? And something that's obviously wrong, right? You say Muslims are perfect, it's not.
Cool. So yeah, so that brings me to the end of the presentation. Thank you guys so much for listening. If anyone was supposed to get chocolate and didn't get any, then just come up and grab some. I have lots. But yeah, that's it. That's about it.
She's not listening to you.
Chocolate, anyone?
Yes, Biff too. Biff too. Biff too. Biff. Don't throw it.
Those are
last ones were very important. So yeah, avoid politics, avoid fiqh issues. Oh, okay. The B syndrome we talked about. There are volunteers around the poster. Make sure you don't have like 2 or 3 volunteers around the poster. Just one. I know you guys want to talk, but try to spread it around so that people are comfortable approaching you and talking about the poster. One thing to keep in this presentation, I noticed there are a lot of side conversations, so please keep it down so that everyone listens to the presentation.
Listening.
The next thing is programming team. Ahmed and Aisha will give an announcement, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm Ahmed and this is Aisha. So we're the program coordinators of this year's IAW. All of you are focused on your posters. It's going great, I see. So while there's the posters going on the other side we're going to be having tables with other activities. So like a small list of the tables are, we have the hijab table, henna table, we have the arts and calligraphy table. So the thing is that we're looking for volunteers to volunteer and facilitate these tables during the week of IAW. So if any of you want to volunteer after the session, you can come to us to sign up, or inshallah by tomorrow we'll be posting up the forms on the WhatsApp groups. Okay, so the arts and calligraphy table is just going to be a small table with like people who have experience with arts and mainly calligraphy. Oh my god, calligraphy skills. And if you do, please volunteer. Yeah.
Hi guys, I have Hania, the head of the hijab table, explain more about the hijab table.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm Hania. So the hijab table would be basically visitors coming to try the hijab and ask questions about the hijab. And this year, because I'm a first, it's my first IW, so I don't know how it was the previous years. But this year we wanted to make it more informative, so we would have posters up explaining more about the hijab and why we wear the hijab. And we are also going to be there to answer any questions. And what we wanted to do basically is that we wanted people to, people who don't wear the hijab, so Muslims and non-Muslims, coming up and wearing the hijab for a day and film their reaction wearing it for the first time, and then film their experience. And when they come back after wearing the hijab for a day, we would film their experience, what they did. They would explain to us how they felt wearing the hijab and how it was, basically. So we wanted to do that, and then maybe do a compilation of the thing that we have and maybe present it after. So that's what we wanted to do for the hijab table.
So that's the hijab table.
That's a good idea.
And for the henna table, if you're good or know anyone who's good at doing henna, please volunteer. We'll send the forms again on the chat, but also you can approach us, me and Hamid, at the end of the session. So that's it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisha, Hania, and the next thing is in the agenda will be done by Sister Hazna Musa. She will be talking about anti-discrimination training.
She's going over there.
Assalamualaikum everyone. My name is Hazla, and I am doing my bachelor's here at Carleton. I am currently the Vice President Internal for the MSA, and part of my duties include just ensuring that every student we cater to here on campus feels welcome to our spaces and is treated with respect. So this is supposed to be an anti-discrimination training, but I am in no way equipped to do that. And even if I was, it would take a lot more than 30 minutes to go through all the issues we have in our communities. So I'm not going to go into that. I'm just going to kind of build up a little bit on what Biftu said, and then we will have like a little presentation at the end. So last year we started the seminar because as much as we're trying to tell people about our faith, we're trying to tell people about Islam during IEW, we have to be conscious of the fact that we have a lot of people who come from different religious backgrounds and people from different race, ethnicity, gender, and whatnot. And it is important that you know how to interact with everyone who comes up to speak to you. Sometimes people come up to us and they are completely ignorant of Islam. And when I say ignorance, I don't mean it in an insulting way, because there's a lot of things I'm ignorant about. Just some people just literally don't know anything about Islam. And when they come up to you, it is important that you keep an open mind, and the way you present yourself and the way you present your poster is really, really important, because that will be their first impression of what Muslims are or how Muslims behave or how our religion is. Try not to dismiss anyone because of the way they look or because of the way they speak, or if maybe they come to child. Just try to listen to every single person that comes up to you. And there's a lot you could learn from everyone. So make it a mission this year to learn something positive from every single person you speak to during IAW, because people come from different backgrounds, like I said, and there's just so much knowledge out there. There's a lot you could pick up. Sometimes you have people come up to you and they are very, very vast in Islamic knowledge. They know a lot about Islam, but they're not Muslims. Try not to disregard what they're saying because you feel like you're a believer and you should, like, you have the upper hand because you're Muslim. Like I said, seeking knowledge and trying to learn new things. Keep an open mind, learn from everyone, and you don't have a higher ground because you don't feel entitled to Islam. Islam doesn't belong to you. So don't, like I said, don't feel entitled to Islam. We Muslims, we often feel comfortable with the little knowledge we have about the deen, about our faith, and we don't go out to seek for more knowledge. Just a little personal story. I was with my mom a long time ago, and she was with a colleague, and this person is so knowledgeable, mashallah, knows a lot about Islam, and I remember I was really, really impressed. I spoke to her because the person is a revert, and I was she was like, yeah, she said it, she told me Hazla Mufiku, that's in another language, but translates to we're better than you, because she's a revert as well. Doesn't mean, she wasn't trying to tell me we're better than you in a arrogant way that, okay, I'm better than you. It's just people who became Muslims are like babies. So they had to learn life, or they had to learn Islam from the beginning. So no matter how much knowledge they've amassed, they constantly try to seek for more knowledge. They try to do better. They try to learn. And because we Muslims, maybe we grew up in a Muslim environment, we grew up in a Muslim background, we probably grew up reading the Quran and whatnot. The little knowledge we know from back in the days is literally what we have up until now. If you went for the khutbah yesterday, the person was talking about Quran and how sometimes we pray with the same 3 surahs that we know. We don't try to open our minds up to like all the beauty that the Quran has to offer. And yeah, so just basically, constantly, even if not for the greater good, just for yourself, just read and like read about history of Islam in certain civilizations and how Islam came to different parts of the world. Just basically seek for knowledge and try to learn from each other. That's why we have IAW. That's why we have our trainings, and that's why we have our courses, and we make research. There's a lot you could. During this period, I personally I learn a lot, and just yeah, research, study, and yeah. So when speaking to someone, and so Bisu just demonstrated that, and you have 2 people in your booth or your subgroup, and you see that obviously this person has a connection with the visitor and they're already speaking. Literally just back up, like you don't have to be there. Or when someone comes up to you and is talking about women issues or hijab, it's a very, very popular topic during IW, and you're a guy, you don't wear the hijab, so tell them, like, answer their questions to the best of your ability, but suggest to them to speak to a sister, because obviously she lives this experience every single day. So answer, but suggest that they speak to someone else so that they have the full experience, and they will. Yeah, we have the hijab table too, so yeah, we could do that. So now, going back to what I was supposed to talk about, anti-discrimination, I know a lot of people say there is no such thing as anti-discrimination, there's no such thing as discrimination or racism in Islam. And if that is where you stand, you are absolutely right. That doesn't exist. Islam is beautiful, Islam is perfect, Islam is complete. Allah gave Islam to us as a favor upon us. But the problem is, we Muslims, we're flawed. We are not perfect, and we make mistakes. So there's no discrimination or racism in Islam, but there's discrimination or racism in the Muslim community. And the first stage to finding a solution to a problem is actually acknowledging that it exists in the first place. So the fact that it doesn't happen to you doesn't mean that it does not exist. So the earlier we stop lying to ourselves, the earlier we can actually find solutions to our problems and, you know, move forward. Usually people bring up, like, if you know the story of Bilal and Abu Dhar, and how I think they had an argument, and he called him the son of a black woman out of spite. And the Prophet heard about this, and the Prophet was upset, and then he spoke to him. I can't tell the full story because I don't want to say anything wrong, but basically the Prophet spoke to him, and then he went back to Bilal and he apologized profusely, and they hugged it out. Basically, that's what happened at the end. So the point I'm trying to make is the Prophet didn't dismiss what happened. You know, they instead of like brushing it off, you know how we do a lot of things in the Muslim community, we just, you know, keeping it, like they always tell you, keep it in the community. Don't try to tell people like the wrong things that's happening. We just brush everything off. Address all these issues, and hopefully we can try to do better. In the face of Allah, we are all the same, regardless of your race, your gender, your ethnicity, your social status. The only thing that distinguishes us is righteousness. It is the only thing that makes us virtuous in the face of Allah. And Abu Nadra reported that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said in the final days of the pilgrimage, your Lord is one, and there is no favor of an Arab over a foreigner and a foreigner over an Arab, and not white skin over black skin except by righteousness. All this just goes to show that the sense of entitlement you have to Islam because of your race or ethnicity, it really doesn't matter. Nobody cares. Like, nobody cares who you are. It absolutely just comes down to your faith and your commitment to Allah. there's so many aspects of Islam that is designed to kind of bring us together. Like Akil said in his presentation, I think 2 weeks ago, when we go for Hajj and we put on the ihram, is we were wearing the same thing, and the sole purpose of doing that thing is to worship Allah. And if you read the autobiography of Malcolm X, where he's quoted his experience when he went for Hajj, he said he ate and drank and he slept in the same place as people who had the bluest of blue eyes and the blondest of blonde hair, and it didn't matter that they looked different from him. The sole purpose was to worship Allah. IAW, the sole purpose is to pass our message about Islam. It is like we're very, very different, but we come together just for this one thing. So, yeah, and it is the belief of Allah that brings us together. So, racism and discrimination is probably not going anywhere. Unfortunately, that is the world we live in. Like, we can't delude ourselves into thinking, oh, things are probably going to change. They're not. Like, you know. But as Muslims, it is our responsibility to, within yourself, work on your family, your little circle. All those stereotypes and prejudices you have probably against a particular community, try to, like, when you see someone say something wrong, just, you might be the bad person in your circle when you start to speak up, but correct your friends, correct your family. Just individually try to do better, because the world is really, really big. But if you, as a person, in your little part of the world, try to like do better, it's better than what we had yesterday. And for IAW, I want you guys to keep an open mind, like I said, and learn as much as you're trying to give up. Everyone says this whenever they come up here. Remember, don't make up stories. You don't know, you don't know. Yeah. And when you begin, finally, when you begin to lose perspective as to why you're doing IAW or as to why you're here, and this applies to everything else in your life, take a moment. We do this all the time in the MSC, and I love it so much. Take 10 seconds, take an hour, take 30 minutes. Reflect and try to renew your intentions. It just kind of brings everything back into perspective and reminds you of why you're doing what you're doing. Because sometimes, I mean, we're upstairs for a week. It kind of like, it's really fun, but sometimes it gets tiring. So like, you want to make sure that you always remember why you volunteered for IAW in the first place, you know, so that you don't, you know, feel discouraged or anything. And yeah, I hope everyone has an amazing IAW experience. This is my third IAW, and it is always really, really fun. I hope you guys get that same exact feeling, or like, I don't know, love I have for IAW, and I hope everyone has fun, inshallah.
Thank you so much, Hazza, for the beautiful presentation, mashallah. Many amazing points to be taken. So now I'm going to start my presentation. I thought about it. I was going to talk about Sharia law. But then I started thinking, I was like, we're forgetting something. Our theme is excellence. We haven't spoken about it for all the training sessions. So I'll be presenting, it's not a presentation, not a side presentation. I'll probably be writing on the board, have some notes. The reason is...
So can I take a picture of the board?
Oh yes, of course, yeah. So, as Hazla mentioned, we're here to, it's true that Biftu mentioned before that we're here in Islam Awareness Week, not Excellence Awareness Week. So our first priority is to give awareness about Islam, about our own religion. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, convey from me a verse, an ayah from the Quran, a verse saying, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, there's no God but Allah and the Prophet Muhammad is his messenger, is enough, and you've done the da'wah. You've done your invitation to the Lord, subhanahu. Now, Hazla also mentioned that one of the purposes why we're here is to gain more knowledge, right? And in order to gain more knowledge and to do that is to be humble and within ourselves and with the community around us. And that's why we had anti-discrimination training just now, and Hazza spoke about it. So, but which brings up the point why we have to talk about excellence. Why do we need more information and things to support our not arguments, but points that need to support the theme that we're presenting this year. Yes, we're presenting Islam, which is the core of this whole event. But the frame that we're giving it with is excellence. And we need to know this by saying it, but most importantly, by doing it, by having the action, the character of excellence. So, big screen out.
Like the button to your right. Your other right. This one.
The other right? You want to turn off the... You don't even need it. You can just like glue it there.
There you go.
Perfect. The other way.
So before I start the lesson, whatever you want to call it, I'll be saying ihsan a lot. So ihsan in Arabic is excellence. So just forgive me if I say it a lot. I know some of you don't understand Arabic, but ihsan means excellence, so just keep this in mind. So who remembers here the hadith, the saying of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ that Asma mentioned in the general meeting?
Worship Allah as if he's in front of you.
See that what?
Worship Allah as if he's in front of you.
Worship Allah as if you see Him, as if He's in front of you. And if you don't see Him, you realize that He sees you. So this is the hadith. This is Jibreel, the angel Gabriel came to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and asked him this question. The hadith is very long. It talks about the 6 articles of faith. It talks about the 3 levels of Islam: Iman, Islam, and Ihsan. And then the Prophet ﷺ answers him with this answer, that Ihsan is as if you worship Allah as if you see Him, and if you do not see Him, you realize that He sees you. So now I want you guys to think with me, where do we apply this most in our daily life? In prayers. So this is ihsan with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with our Creator, right? The prayers we should strive for. I know a lot of us, including me, sometimes, we have a joke, inside joke between me and Ahmed. If you forget something, like you lost something, you don't know where it is, the first thing you do is you go and you pray 2 rak'ahs. Because then you remember where you forgot. So while you're praying, you need to have khushu', you need to have tranquility, and you need to focus, because you're in front of Allah, right? You're imagining as you seeing Him and He's seeing you. So that there's that connection. And that should be our highest level of ihsan. So prayers. This is ihsan. Now this is in the realm of prayers, but including when we have ihsan with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, including that there are many things, there are many actions of worship other than prayers. Prayers obviously is the most important one, but even volunteering itself. You guys are here, you're volunteering. Now studies say that when volunteers who have a background of faith, they have belief in what they're volunteering in, or they have, but for us, we're volunteering for the sake of Allah, right? We're volunteering to present Islam. We're volunteering because we're Muslims, or we know about Islam and we want to present it and we want to learn more about it, right? So this is something to keep in mind, and we can extract 2 points from this. One is that a lot of us, I tend sometimes to, I praise Allah for giving me the health, for me being here in university, for not being poor, for many things, many blessings, right? But there is something that we tend to forget, which is the blessing of being a Muslim, or even like for people who are here and not Muslims, but they're volunteering with us, just coming here, right, to help us present Islam. That's something great, and I think everyone should give a round of applause for them. So that's something that we always need to keep in mind. Make sure you praise Allah for the blessing of Islam, or for knowing about it at least. The second point is also very important, and we try to remind ourselves during IW about this. Intentions. Because when you're having this connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your intentions should be very clear and should be very pure as well. So I'll take this as an opportunity for us to all renew our intentions for the next 20 seconds. So now coming back to the point of ihsan, Imam al-Ghazali, who's a medieval and very well-known great scholar, he says that ihsan creates two behaviors within a person. One is that if a person sins, so if a person sins, right, he realizes that he or she loves Allah, right, more than himself, and then more than the action that he did. So he repents. So that's one form of ihsan, right? Now the second form is if he does a good deed. Now in this scenario, he praises Allah more than he knows that the praise from Allah is better than the praise of the people. Because if you do something good, obviously you're gonna get praise and acknowledgement from the people around you, right? And this is something that we encourage here in IW, that when you see your like fellow volunteers doing great work, make sure you acknowledge that and then you appreciate that. But most importantly is having the appreciation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the second. These two forms are forms of ihsan. And in both ways, if you do a sin or you do a good deed, you should always have that character of ihsan that always has good consequences at the end. Now, coming back to the word of ihsan itself, when mentioned in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran ihsan many times, muhsineen, ihsan, like going back to the root word of ihsan. And when he always mentions the word ihsan in the Quran, it always refers to treating people, right? How to interact with people. So who can give me an example here where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions ihsan or muhsineen or any? Go ahead. Exactly. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ahqaf, وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ إِحْسَانًا. We've enjoined upon men and women to treat his or her parent with ihsan. So obedience is something guaranteed, right? Respect and obedience is something guaranteed. That's in every human being, you should have that, right? Now the next thing is, the next level which comes beyond that is to have excellence to them, to have ihsan to them, to honor them, right? So it's all about paying attention to the details, because you always obey your parents, you always are respectful to them, but paying attention to the details is very important. So there's this story of a king. He said to his sons that I like the general more than you. So this is a story that Ibn al-Jawzi, which is another scholar of Islam, he tells this. And then the sons were like, why? But we're your sons. I mean, You should like us more. So he said, okay. Then they went to a trip, right? And then he told everyone that I'm getting I want water, I'm getting thirsty. So his sons were the first ones to go and get him water. But then they walked for another like 10 kilometers or so, and then he just did. So the general right away went and brought water to him, and he told them this is why. Because ihsan is that it's not only when you're asked to do something, you go beyond. You go beyond. You have that feeling, you have that character of excelling and doing anything you do it with excellence and perfection. Aisha radiallahu anha narrates a hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you do something, do it with perfection. In Allah Ta'ala يحب إذا عمل أحدكم عملا أن يتقنه. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those people who, if they do something, they do it with perfection. So paying attention to the details. We all know the story of the man who entered Jannah because he removed something from a path, right? Now I want to ask you a question. Did this man know that if he would have taken that object away from the path, he would enter Jannah? No. Would he know that, did he know that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is going to praise him and have him in his own saying and hadith? Did he know that this story is going to be mentioned this year in IW? No. So it's these small things, paying attention to details. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says in a hadith, لا تحقرن من المعروف شيئا ولو أن تلقى أخاك بوجه طلق. Don't degrade from a very small deed, even if it's just smiling to your brother. So these small deeds have a lot of impact. Ibn Mas'ud narrates in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that Allah will double and triple your deeds until, even if they're small, until they engulf all of your sins, and then you might enter Jannah, inshallah. Another verse where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions ihsan, or word specifically al-muhsinin, which is the people of ihsan, is verse 133 and 134 from Surah Al-Imran. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وسارعوا إلى مغفرة من ربكم وجنة عرضها السماوات والأرض أعدت للمتقين. Rush to the forgiveness of your Lord and a paradise and a Jannah that is as vast as the heavens and the earth, prepared for those who are conscious to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the next verse is الذين ينفقون في السراء والضراء والكاظمين الغيظ والعافين عن الناس والله يحب المحسنين. Those the person who gives charity when he is in need or when he is in ease. That's the first point. Second point is those who have forbearance, or they're very patient. If someone makes them angry, they don't get angry as quick. They're very patient, they're very calm. They forbear people, right? Even if when they're right, even if you're right and someone makes you angry, you still keep yourself calm, right? In the hadith, the Prophet Muhammad says, I guarantee a house in Jannah for the one who leaves argument even when he's completely right. So this is something that relates to IAW, right? Don't get into arguments where you feel your pride is going up and then you're just defending Islam because you want to prove the other guy wrong, right? There are academic debates that can take place, but that's for scholars. Here we're presenting Islam. Yes, we might sometimes get into slight not arguments, but just like a discussion, right? He asks you a question, you answer him, and then you ask him a question and he answers you, but make it very light. Don't get into arguments that are not needed. So in this ayah, الذين ينفقون في السراء والضراء والكاظمين الغيظ والعافين عن الناس والله يحب المحسنين. All these 3 points giving charity when you're in ease or when you're in need. Second point is having forbearance and being patient when you're angry. Third point is forgiving people, right? All these points, who can tell me what is, like, what are the consequences of these, or what do they relate to? How do you, like, these actions, right? Who do you do them, like, is it with Allah or is it with the people? It's with the people around you, right? So it solely relates to the people around you and the community. And then at the end, when Allah gives all of this list, He said, and Allah loves those who loves the people of ihsan. So this should be a motivation for everyone to go above and beyond, paying attention to the details again, and doing these certain actions that are related to the treatment of people. Because Islam, yes, it's the belief, yes, it is the faith, but it is also the treatment of people, because this is the way you're portraying Islam. So it's all about application, and you're not only gaining the love of people around you because you're treating them in a good way, but you're also gaining the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So basically ihsan is at different levels. First we mentioned ihsan with family. In the first verse from Surah Ahqaf, and then we mentioned ihsan with the community around you. That's verses 133 and 134 from Surah Al-Imran, the second chapter. So we have ihsan with, first thing we have ihsan with Allah, and then we have ihsan with the family or friends, and then we have ihsan with the community. But there's also another important sphere, which is ihsan of a community to another community, which is basically what we're applying right here, Islam Awareness Week. Because we are in a Canadian community, but we're a community within ourselves as well, because we're part of our identity, and Aqil went over this during his presentation a month or 2 months ago, that Islam is an identity for us. So I'm just going to tell a story where the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ exemplified this community to a community. So the thing is that something that's very interesting. The most beautiful hadith, sayings, or stories of the Prophet ﷺ from his seerah are the ones that when someone comes and offends him. So this is a story of a Jewish rabbi, Zayd ibn Sa'na. He came to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ owed him 20 kilograms of dates. He owed him money, exactly 20 kilograms of dates. So Zayd ibn Sa'na, he came, took the hand of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, grabbed it, and he was like, "You are the people of Bani Hashim, the tribe of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. You were cheaters." But the thing is that there were still 3 days. The debt was like 3 days due. So he came 3 days before when it was due, which is 20 kilograms a day. And then he started abusing the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. This is in front of all the companions around. Who can guess one companion who was around? No. Umar. What would you guess Umar would do at that time?
Here's the bottle red.
Smack them.
Huh?
Smack them.
Close.
Slap.
So the thing is that Umar, yes. So obviously when you see, it's almost everyone here, right? It's everyone here would have the same reaction. I would have the same reaction from Umar ibn Khattab. If something like this happens to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he grabbed him like this. He grabbed him from his collar and put him on the wall like this. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he got very, he was like, "Umar, Ibn Khattab, this is not what we need you for." So he pulled him back. And he said, you could have advised me, you could have advised him to be kinder in the way he approached me, right? And you could have advised me to have more ihsan, have more excellence, and pay him before. Although the debt was 3 days due, but still, the Prophet Muhammad is striving for more. He's striving for beyond. More excellence, more ihsan. So the next thing that happened was that, this is how we learned that Prophet Muhammad is a great teacher. So guess who he sent with Zayd ibn Sa'na to take his 20 kilograms a day? Umar ibn Khattab. Because it's not about the saying, when you teach someone, it's not about the saying, it's about the application as well. Right? So he wants to teach Umar ibn Khattab a lesson of you need to apply this. Right? So go and give him that 20 kilograms of dates. Not only that, so he gave him 20 kilograms of dates, and an extra 20 kilograms because of the way you treated him. So Umar ibn Khattab and Zayd ibn Sa'na, they were walking to get the 40 kilograms of dates now. And then Zayd ibn Sa'na, he was like, do you know who I am? So Umar ibn Khattab. Umar ibn Khattab was like, no, I don't care. And then he was like, Zayd ibn Sa'na, I am the rabbi. It's like, you're Zayd ibn Sa'na? You're the Habrul Yahud? You're the rabbi of the Jews? You're a respected person. Why would you do this? Very surprised. And he was like, because I knew that I believe that there are 2 signs of the Prophet who's going to come. One is that if someone offends him, his forbearance comes before his anger. His patience and forbearance comes before his anger. The second point is, if someone offends him, and even if you offend him more and more and more, his forbearance increases and becomes even quicker. So that he has more hilm, he's more halim, he has forbearance more if someone offends him more. So it increases, like positive correlation. It doesn't make sense. It should be the other way around I guess for me at least. It's the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So then guess what he did, this rabbi, after he saw these signs? He gave the shahada. He testified that there is no God but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the Prophet Muhammad is his messenger. So what I'm saying here is, the theme is that Islam is treatment as well. Right? Islam is, yes, you give all the knowledge that you have, but it's also the treatment with people. Treatment with us internally, as volunteers, right, together, and externally, when we were there on the floor of IW and talking to people, presenting Islam in the best way, in speech and action. Of course, the verse in Surah Ar-Rahman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, هَلْ جَزَاءُ الْإِحْسَانِ إِلَّا الْإِحْسَانِ. So make sure you always remember this. Is the reward for ihsan nothing but ihsan itself. Right? Ihsan in this dunya and ihsan in the akhirah. Excellence in this dunya and excellence in the hereafter as well. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us ihsan and excellence in this dunya, in Islam Awareness Week that we're doing coming up in 2 weeks, and in the hereafter as well. جزاكم الله خير. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار.
I didn't know that story. The story was nice.
You should take a picture.
You're right. Here.
Oh.
Wait, can we take a picture?
Here.
I have a phone too.
Sorry.
Actually, go ahead, take a picture. Just take it his phone, yeah. He jinxed it. Look.
It's okay. What is right there?
You want to take? Okay, thank you. She's taking a photo.
Guys, it's not paparazzi. I don't know yet.
Listen, this is amazing notes here, okay? Hey, hey, how are you? Can you? No one's talking. It's okay.
So we have a few announcements to go through today. So the first one is that IEW is only 16 days away, so subhanAllah, time really does fly. We had our information session in November. This whole semester, you guys have been coming every Saturday to do your trainings, and you've done so much work, mashallah. May Allah reward all of your efforts. The one thing we wanted to talk about is posters are due today, and we understand that not everyone was able to finish them. So there are points allocated to posters, but even if you have something done today, you will get partial points. That being said, our mock is next week, and you guys need your final poster because this is a run-through of IEW. So if you haven't finished, please finish before then.
And a huge round of applause for all of you guys. I was just walking around at like 11:30 in the story tunnels, and I see like 15 people like working on the posters, mashallah. And I go down to UC, the Porter Hall, and there's like 10 people in there working on posters. And then it was 2 a.m. and there's still like 7 to 8 people in Porter Hall working on the videos. And then I come to the Patterson Hall, and there's like 7 people in the room, and they're also working on like the video, like mashallah, that dedication, like you're staying so long. Like, but do like get enough sleep and things like that. Huge round of applause for all of you, inshallah. And a quick reminder, I think Hazla, Sam, and everyone who was speaking today, they said the same thing. Always like renew your intentions, and this is from the Quran. Allah is saying, and who is better in speech than one who invites to Allah and does righteousness and says, indeed, I'm of the Muslims. So like it's something to be proud of that you're a Muslim. And your IW is all about like inviting people and like raising awareness about Islam, so you're already doing this. And Allah is saying, and who is better in speech than the one? So, mashallah, be proud of what you're doing right now. Alhamdulillah.
So,
I'll just skip to.
So like in terms of timeline, we already did most of it. If you guys look, like half of the timeline is March. So this is gonna be a really, really busy month for us. Today is like the last kind of training, and mock we'll talk about a bit later is basically an opportunity for you guys to experience IEW before IEW, so it prepares you a little bit in advance. March 19 to 23 is the big event. Inshallah, we will be in the atrium from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We will be setting up earlier around 8 a.m. So for those of you who can make it, that would be awesome. When IEW is over, we have an appreciation dinner, and that's just to celebrate you guys and all the effort that you put into this amazing event.
So suggestion, last thing, we didn't really get any suggestion. We got one this time. Who wants to read it out?
Am I reading?
Yeah.
Suggestions. The prize for the winning booth should be either one semester of tuition for 2 people,
like this.
or full year tuition for 1 person. This can be done through a draw or by needs base, so that you can directly only pay the tuition rather than give out a cash prize. Would be cool, comma, also super motivating, comma, if possible, JK.
Yeah, I guess.
They're referring to like domestic, not international.
Yeah,
probably.
No.
It should be international.
May Allah help us get enough sponsorships.
Inshallah.
But yeah, to answer your question, winning the booth competition is more about like we want this IW. So that's like you get grind. Yeah, it's the hype that's there. Next is the point system. So we'll see who's winning right now. Who checked the point system before?
I think I did. Not today.
Where's Farheen?
In the first position, we have with 8 points. Society's on a tie as well.
Oh,
so
it's a tie.
Foundations is not far behind. They're just 1 point back. So
So if there's a tie, why are they in one position?
Hey.
Because we're amazing.
I know.
Listen, it's because we're amazing. Yeah, it's because we're you.
They're not.
No, they're not.
It's a tie.
It says 1 and 1. We just didn't change the graphic.
It's a tie.
It's a tie, yeah.
Why is everybody so getting so upset?
You're both women.
Use the...
Yeah. So that's that. Also, very exciting thing is you had their bake sale before Reading Week, and they raised $1,045 in just one day. Like, mashallah. Foundations people, you guys have locked a huge target to reach, more than 1,045. Beat them. Another thing, if you follow the IW page right now, we have a contest going on that's going on until Monday. So if you invite your friends and tag them in that contest post, then you'll be like entered into a draw to win an IW cup, which is pretty nice. You can drink coffee in it, obviously.
Oh, fancy.
It's ending tomorrow, and it's going to be announced on Monday. The other thing is now, since starting today, when we'll be posting the booth video first online, the marketing is shifting from volunteers to the public. So before it was like sign up, things about IW, but now it's inviting people to come to IW. So it's a perfect opportunity, like perfect time to invite people to the page so that they are aware of what's happening and they can check the dates and everything, inshallah.
Okay, I was supposed to ask.
Yeah, so like every year for IW, we have profile pictures that are like IW themed, and the whole idea is it's like a social media campaign. It gets more attention. So this year they should be ready to Monday, inshallah. So we'll have 4 different profile pictures and cover photos, and your booth leaders will give you more information about that. There are points attached to this, so if you do change your profile picture and your cover photo by Tuesday at 11:59 p.m., you will be getting points towards your booth, inshallah.
So because obviously everyone has different settings for privacy, if you use the hashtags, then hopefully you can track like how many people changed it. So be sure to have these 2 hashtags in your things, and your booth leaders are going to post it in your group, so you'll have it there to show. Volunteer handout. So this is a very nice thing that a lot of people from the previous IWs did a lot of research on Islam, and like spent a lot of hours learning and researching, and they put a handout together. It pretty much is like a document with a lot of common questions and controversial questions about Islam, and gives you key pointers and things to give answers to people. So this is going to be ready during the week. Hopefully by Wednesday we can send it out. So you'll have it by email and on WhatsApp. So be sure to go over it before the mock, so we'll go over what's happening in the mock in a bit, but we'll be having questions. The training team is going to ask you questions from the handout as well. So like make sure you are like aware of what's there. It's very good information to learn as well in general. Like you might get these questions very often in the Okay, so another thing, obviously you guys all know there's a minimum to volunteer for IW, like 2 seminars and 1 workshop. So there are a lot of people who are very busy, they signed up but they couldn't make it to the trainings. They took an extra course this semester, so they said they don't want to do IW anymore. So people like that, we'll be like removing them from the WhatsApp group so they don't get spammed with our notifications. So when we do this, there's going to be a lot of, this got removed. It's going to be a long thing, so don't get afraid. Like it's just people who are inactive, who are not there anymore. So that's just like a heads up for that. Also, if you did receive an email last week saying you didn't meet the minimum requirement, come to us after the training and we can discuss more what we can do, inshallah.
So next Saturday, inshallah, it's going to be the mock. So if you haven't done IW before, a mock is like, it's almost exactly like IW. We'll be setting up the floor plan, you'll have your posters, and there will be people that come around and ask you questions. So it's different types of questions, different types of guests that you will be coming across during the week of IW. So it's really important that you come on time, because this is actually longer than our typical sessions. So the mock is actually 4 hours, but it's split into 2 parts. The first part will be the mock IW that I just talked about, and then the second part is going to be a panel. So the panel is going to be people who've done IW in the past are going to come and share their experiences, so what they've learned from IW, some memorable events for them, and tips for you guys that inshallah will help you during the week of IW.
To add to that, so this year's structure for the mock is like the first hour is going to be like actual mock. So you'll be standing beside your poster, the training team is going to come around, ask you questions, tough questions as well, and then you'll be explaining your poster. They'll try to like help you, give you feedback. The second hour is more of you going around in a tour to the other posters. So as let's say foundations would go for the posters of society and you, and then society would go for you and foundations. So like all of us would get to tour everyone's poster. So during the IW, if you see someone's poster is empty, so you have a background, something to speak about. It's going to be around that. Any questions, general? You need to be quick because we have to show the videos as well.
One related to the mock IW. I know there's going to be different trainings in asking questions. What we suggest other members of that subgroup to be doing while they ask questions? That might be different training. Because
So
they're going to ask questions, but you don't want to be crowding around that.
No, so there's training team members. There's a lot, so they're going to come to everyone. Yeah, it's not just one at a time. It's going to be everyone. Any other general questions? So time for the exciting part, booth videos.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ready?
All my folders in
You had to.
next
I
week.
got you. You know what we have to do?
I don't know what I have in there. I'm scared.
It's okay.
What is it?
I don't know.
My life is being exposed right now. God.
It's okay. I can't see. I can't see.
Oh,
I'm actually so excited. We're not going first, right?
No.
Yeah, Omar, we're not going first.
Foundation? Yeah.